Last night I saw Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3, and what everybody is saying is true. I think that this is the greatest Marvel movie since No Way Home, hands down. Hey everyone, welcome back. Today I'm going to be reviewing Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3, and man, I have not been able to stop thinking about this since I watched it last night. This is going to be a spoiler-filled review, so if you haven't seen the movie yet, save this video for later, leave a like, and hit that subscribe button, and come back after you've seen it because, man, I've got a lot to talk about. I'm going to kind of run through the movie real quick and give you the main plot points of what happens, and then I'm going to give my thoughts like I do normally with episode breakdowns of TV shows. But it's going to be hard because, so much happens in this movie, so forgive me if I forget something. But most importantly, I want to know what you guys thought about this movie. So while I'm saying this right now, go into the comment section and tell me what you thought. Because I think I'm honestly in the majority here of people who like the movie, and I might have missed a couple things. So let me know what you liked or disliked about this down below. So the movie starts with a very different tone than the other Guardians 2 movies. It's very somber, very kind of depressing. We're sort of catching up with our Guardians, and Star-Lord is kind of in a drunken state because he doesn't have Gamora by his side, and Rocket is just moping around. The soundtrack to Volume 3 is incredible. It starts off with Creep by Radiohead, and there's a couple other amazing songs. Loved the soundtrack. So they're on the celestial body of nowhere, which we've seen in the other Guardians movies, and then all of a sudden this guy from space comes down and attacks Rocket. Now this is Adam Warlock. We've seen him in the trailers. We've seen him before we knew Will Poulter was going to be playing this character, and he just enters the movie so fast. He's got so much power, and this really showcases what his character can do because he honestly takes all the Guardians out so fast. Most of them manage to get away, but he really hurts Rocket. And this sets up the plot of what the rest of the movie is going to be about, which is essentially Rocket's past and saving Rocket because he's got this terrible wound from Adam Warlock, but there's also something else that is sort of keeping his body running but also could kill him at the same time. They're trying to save him from the damage that Adam Warlock did, and they find this little thing on his heart, which is essentially a detonator. This was put there by the guy who created him, which we meet later, and this is the High Evolutionary, the main villain of this story. And villains. Marvel has had sometimes a problem with their villains. They can't really nail it all the times. We have the greats like Thanos, Ultron, Killmonger, but here the High Evolutionary is just pure evil. There's really no redeeming qualities with this villain, and I think it's a breath of fresh air because we don't necessarily want to always relate to the villain. Sure, it tells for a compelling story, but when we have someone who's downright just evil, it makes us root for our characters even more to defeat him. So we find out Adam Warlock was ordered by the High Evolutionary to come pick up Rocket and kill the other Guardians, and we find out more about his past and Rocket's past. Rocket was tested on his entire life growing up, and he had these friends who essentially were animals from Earth as well. And here's a warning for anyone who plans on seeing this movie. If you don't like seeing animals get hurt, you're going to have a hard time watching this movie. And I think I had a hard time watching this movie sometimes. There were some scenes that just made me so uncomfortable because of the fact that animals, things that we love so much here on our planet, are getting tortured and hurt. And it's just hard to watch these things, but it's also building up the emotional connection that we have not only to Rocket, but the other animals that he becomes best friends with. Rocket starts off as a baby, but he grows up with this otter named Lila, this walrus named Teefs, and a bunny named Floor. And just a quick side note, the comedy in this movie, the Guardians has always done a fantastic job with comedy, and again, it knocks it out of the park here. I'm going to kind of skip ahead a little bit in the plot because basically the only thing that really happens is the Guardians are trying to find a way to disable the detonator in Rocket's heart that was put there by the High Evolutionary. This movie does a lot of flashing back and forth, and I think it actually works here because the stuff that's happening in the past is very interesting and just downright depressing, sad, and hard to watch. Again, hard to watch at times. So we find out through Rocket's past that he was smarter than everybody else that the High Evolutionary was testing on. But the High Evolutionary couldn't understand why Rocket was so intuitive, why he could innovate, why he could invent, why his evolution was so key, and why it was working when everybody else that he was testing on wasn't. Because his whole goal is to create a perfect society with high evolved beings and have a perfect world. Which he does this in the movie, and we go to this other planet called Counter Earth, which is essentially a place where the High Evolutionary put all of his beings who he thought were perfect, but it's just a carbon copy of Earth from the 1970s. You still have drug dealers, you still have people who don't have homes, you still have corruption, so he really has failed. And the High Evolutionary knows this, and he needs Rocket back to get his brain to figure out what went wrong and just basically kill everybody that he established on that counter Earth and start over again. The guy is completely nuts. And the performances in this movie, the High Evolutionary, the Guardians, I mean, everybody was top notch here. It was just sort of unbelievable because this is the third and final Guardians movie. And thinking about in the theater that this is the last time we're going to see these characters all together on a screen at the same time was just kind of sad. It was sort of surreal. Anyways, the Guardians go on their journey to figure out how to save Rocket, and they go to this really cool Organ-based planet, which was really fun to watch. Amazing comedy moments, but then we actually get to the point where we find out what happened with Rocket in his past. Rocket was promised by the High Evolutionary that when they were done testing and making the perfect organism, they would allow him and his friends to live on the counter Earth with everybody. And these animals that Rocket grew up with in these cages were essentially his family, his first family. So where the time comes where it's time for them to live on this planet, the High Evolutionary says, you really thought you were that special? You are just a prototype to make the perfect being. And Rocket is just so innocent here, so childlike, but so intelligent. And we realize he's going to kill all of them. And Rocket makes a plan to escape and gets all of his friends out, and it seems like it's going to go well, but the whole time you're watching it, you know something bad is going to happen because these characters aren't here for the remainder of, the Marvel saga. The High Evolutionary stops them, kills all of Rocket's friends, and this scene just hurt so bad to watch. This was probably the most painful scene for me in the movie, at least pain-wise. There's a more emotional scene that happens at the end. But as far as pain goes, watching someone lose their friends and family is just so difficult, and especially when they're animals. I love animals, so this was, again, hard to watch. But it means James Gunn's vision is working. He's connecting with the audience. He's pulling at our heartstrings because he knows how to do it. And the payoff and the reason why he gets to toy with our emotions so much is because he knows how to bring it back and tell such a great story. Because this movie is Rocket's movie, 100% about Rocket. Yeah, the Guardians are in it, and each one of the Guardians have their own story. Peter Quill's story in this is great. He loves Gamora, but this isn't the same Gamora that he loved. And it's sort of a story where, you have to give up on your feelings if somebody isn't feeling the same way towards you. This Gamora doesn't know who Peter is, and he's trying so hard to connect with her and fall back in love with her. And she's just saying, I'm sorry, I'm not who you think I am. It's a lesson of letting go and moving on. And of course, she does sort of fall for him near the end of the movie, but they go their separate ways, and it was just really, really mature. Drax also has a great story. He's the comedic relief for all of the Guardians movies, and they pointed out here that he's funny and he's dumb, but he makes a sacrifice for himself and for others in this movie where he puts his life on the line to save hundreds of kids. Which I know I jumped ahead kind of, but there's all these kids that the High Evolutionary is taking to this new planet that he was going to start over. And Drax essentially saves all of their lives, and we find out Drax's main purpose here on this planet and in this universe, like Mantis says in the movie, is to be a dad. And let's talk about Mantis for a second, because she gets to show her powers off here, and oh my gosh, finally we're seeing Mantis used in the capacity that she should have been used. She is so powerful, and her mind control abilities are really shown and basically showcased here at their full potential, and it was awesome to watch. Which kind of segues into the most amazing fight scene I think Marvel has had maybe ever. It's a small sequence in a hallway, but all of the Guardians get their moment to shine. And man, you just have to watch this fight scene. It is incredible. I was having my jaw on the floor the entire time. It's near the end of the movie where all the Guardians kind of get back together and they all show off what they can do. And if you sit there and look back and just think while you're watching this, this is a superhero movie. I love all of these characters and they're kicking ass, and it is just so gratifying to see it. I loved that fight scene so much. It was so impactful, so well choreographed, and I think it might be one of the best Marvel fight scenes that I've ever seen. So when this movie's trailer first came out, we all thought Rocket was going to die. We all thought maybe Drax was going to die because Dave Bautista, who plays Drax, said that this was his final movie. And then we have Zoe Saldana saying that this is her last movie as Gamora as well. So going into this, I thought, okay, I'm going to prepare myself for someone to die. And the trailer and the whole movie honestly makes you think Rocket is not going to survive. They sort of save him halfway through the movie, but then we get to a point where he's fighting off against the High Evolutionary in the end, and you think, oh wait, they're going to kill him. But no, Rocket proves that he is not just an animal. He's not just a trash panda. He's not just a raccoon. He's more than that. And I just love this story so much. Again, there's probably so much that I'm forgetting to talk about here. So let me know down below what I'm missing and what you guys want to tell me, what you thought about this movie, because it is so packed. I have to watch it again, but I don't know if I can sit through some of those scenes again anytime soon. Now, some criticism that I was seeing about this movie with the previews was that Adam Warlock was sort of underutilized. And I can kind of agree. This movie, as I just said, was jam-packed and had so much in it. Do I think they could have held off on Adam Warlock for a little bit? Yeah, I do think they could have. But this is a guy who is a child in a grown man's god body. And I think Will Poulter plays that off perfectly. I can't wait to see more of him because he's essentially part of the Guardians now. And I really hope they utilize him in just broader MCU stuff, not just the Guardians. Because this is the last Guardians movie with our original characters. This movie ends, shockingly, no one dies. There's a scene near the end where Peter Quill saves everybody and he's floating out in space. He dies. And I was kind of mad because, Peter had some spotlight in this movie, but this was Rocket's movie, so killing Peter Quill didn't seem like it meant anything. But Adam Warlock comes to the rescue after fighting them. They had their beef, but they figured it out. And I was like, thank God. Thank God. And then you think the movie's over, but there's another 15 to 20 minutes. The action and stuff ends, and the High Evolutionary gets to live because of Rocket letting him, but he's gone. He's done. In the last 20 minutes, not really any action, but it's sort of a reflection on the Guardians as a whole. We get this huge celebration of victory and family and friends to the song Dog Days by Florence and the Machine, I think. And I got emotional during this scene because it's just James Gunn's love letter to the Guardians and showing the audience, and everyone in the audience realizes this is it. This is the last time we're going to see them together. They saved the day. They did great things. Each one of them has fulfilled their character arc. And I'm so, so happy that they get a happy, peaceful ending. We see Drax dance for the first time, and Groot, who has been like swole body Groot this whole movie, finally says something other than I am Groot. He says, I love you guys. And Madison was sitting next to me, and she started crying during that scene. Just everybody got their moment to shine in this movie, even though it was Rocket's movie. This movie is Endgame level on the sense that it wraps things up in a nice bow and is satisfying and bittersweet. I'm just glad nobody died. Gamora goes off with the Ravagers. Peter goes back home to try and find his granddad, which he does, and it's very sweet. Mantis goes off to find out who she really is because her whole life she's been being told what to do by Ego, by the Guardians, and now she's getting to find out who she really is. And Drax gets to kind of do his own thing too. But Rocket is now the leader of the Guardians of the Galaxy with Groot, with Kraglin, with Adam Warlock. This new lineup of Guardians can be pretty cool. And in the post-credit scene, at least one of them, we see a new member of the Guardians who is a child and has a glowing eye with these scars around her mouth. She seems to be like one of those kids that were saved from the High Evolutionary, and some people are saying this is the MCU's version of Quasar, which could be really, really cool. But yeah, just this movie was bittersweet in the best way possible, and I loved it. This is what the Marvel movies should do every time. I'm going to give this movie like a 9.5 out of 10. As someone who loves the Guardians, but not as much as like Spider-Man or the Captain America trilogy, this movie cements the Guardians trilogy as one of the best trilogies I've ever seen. It stands on its own, even though it's wacky and wild and connects to the bigger Marvel universe. It knows what it is, and it stays true to that. Guys, please let me know what you thought about this movie. I loved it so much, and I'm looking for reasons to go back to it. Tell me what I missed. Let me know down below if you liked it. If you didn't like it, I really, really am curious. And lastly, if you guys could hit that subscribe button on the way out, it would mean so much to me. We're getting so close to 400 subscribers, and every one of you counts. Anyways, thank you guys so much for watching, and I will see you all very soon.